Hi, I'm Dr. Matthew Norton, the founder of People Plus Purpose, and this is the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. And today, my guest is Dr. Camden Brown. Camden is an orthodontist and business coach who helps doctors create a life they love now rather than waiting for retirement. I love that. Why wait? She specializes in guiding doctors through transitions, including navigating life and career after selling a practice, as well as creating deeper impact in their work using a blend of neuroscience and mindset. So, welcome to the podcast, Camden.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this, and we had a little kind of pre-chat and already have decided that we enjoy uh, having conversation with each other and we have some things in common. So, uh, in that, understanding that you have sold your orthodontic practice a few years back. Um, I'm interested to hear kind of what that transition was like for you. What was it like maybe that led you into making a decision like that? And then after it was done, what was your experience then?
Yeah, good questions. Um, Leading up to it, I bought my practice about a year after I graduated. So I worked with somebody and then I bought an office from him. And um, when I decided to sell my practice, I had thought about it several times over the years. I would sort of cycle between really enjoying it and feeling that it was fulfilling and I was growing through it. And then other times where I would just feel variety of different things, sometimes overwhelmed, sometimes like I was really missing out on other aspects of my life. In particular, a big one for me was feeling like I was missing out on my kids growing up.
Mhm.
So I had a practice that was about 30 minutes from my house, which isn't too far.
Right.
With the hours that I worked and the commute, I was often unavailable in the morning or after work. And eventually I really craved being there and being present, I guess, when I got
Mm-hmm.
home from work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so at some point, I asked myself the question, if I had 5 years left to live, what would I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I ultimately decided to sell my practice. Another part of that decision was I wanted to move, so I wanted to be somewhere warmer and closer to family.
Mm-hmm.
So realizing that my parents, didn't have, we don't know how much time we have
Right,
left.
right, right.
Yeah, and just kind of imagining if I continue at the rate that I'm seeing them, how many more times will I see them in my life?
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
that's what kind of led to the decision. And once those things started to come together, it seemed clear enough to compel you forward through that, even though you kind of didn't know fully what you were going into next, right? Exactly what was happening.
Yeah. I think the other question I'm just remembering that I had asked myself was I either have to accept things exactly as they are or change them was kind of the conclusion. And I had tried changing different aspects
Hmm.
and I still felt compelled to do something different, but I wasn't entirely sure what that was.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and so it was after COVID, I said to my husband, I'd like to sell. And at that point, he joined in on the adventure. So
Okay.
he said,
Great.
I'm ready to move, to start my architecture firm and
Okay.
do some other things. And we just decided to pivot.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. I mean, those are big decisions to make. And I think it's interesting because I think that sometimes other people, the culture in general, I don't know what uh thinks, I mean, you put all that work into becoming that thing, right? And like, why would you, especially that early in a career, like this really you could have theoretically kept doing that for a long time, uh, to change, right? To walk away from that. So, I mean, that's kind of a bold move. And So I always kind of want to congratulate people when they're willing to make kind of intentional, bold moves and take the risk. So once you'd done it, then I mean, what was the feeling that you had afterwards? What was your experience? How did you maybe begin to re-identify who you were in the work world?
Yeah, it's definitely been a process. It's still unfolding.
Okay. That's
I will,
honest. Yeah, good.
I think maybe for all of us, right?
Right,
We're
right.
always continuing to unfold.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't have the mindset that I will never do clinical orthodontics again or I will never own again. I just knew that at this point, um, I wanted to reset. I wanted to explore, figure out what else was there. So we moved, and that took up a lot of time, just simply moving and getting everyone settled. And then it was definitely very disorienting because I was in a new place where suddenly I was simply, not simply, but I was Camden. I was a mom. I was not Dr. Brown anymore
Yeah.
to anybody in the town. And the first job that I got after selling was working on a flower farm.
Hmm.
So
That was
I
a kind of a hard left turn, wasn't it?
wasn't going all the way. Yes, I found out about this daffodil farm and I wrote to them and said I would really like to work for you. And I did not hear back. And then I wrote maybe one or two more times. And finally I got a response. You are highly overqualified.
What the heck
We're
are you doing, lady?
we are only paying minimum wage.
Right.
And I said, you know what? I don't care. You can pay me in flowers. I just want to go to this farm. And I guess I intuitively, I mean, when I reflect back, it was just so simple. It was just grounding. I was sitting there, I was picking daffodils in the as the sun rose with like a little morning mist, and I didn't have to be anything,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I also learned that running a farm is hard, and I don't really want to run a farm.
One thing about new experiences is some of them you won't want to do those either, right?
Yeah. But love it. It
Yeah,
was great. And I was just very thankful that I got to pause and do that.
yeah.
Mm.
So with that experience and maybe anything else that kind of flowed from the transition, I mean, there's people, I guess, who are watching us, listening to us, who I'm certain some are thinking, permission to reconsider. I mean, I think there's something here about change, the willingness to change, to consider other possibilities other than what the original plan was. And then so for those people who are hearing this going, wow, okay, so how is this turning out? Or what's the transitional phase like for you? And then also maybe for those people who are either seriously considering that or are in that phase even now,
Mm.
what have you learned? What would you recommend? What would be meaningful for people to know from your experience?
Yeah. I think that there are a few ways someone can approach it. The first is recognizing that when you're making a change, often there's going to be a part of you that feels unsafe,
Hmm.
that there's might be a voice that says, I don't know if we should do this, this is not a good idea, or a sense of anxiety, in your nervous system, because our bodies are wired for what it knows. So if it knows that this is the safe space that we've been in, there, it's going to put up blocks, thoughts, sensations. So I think just knowing that that could happen is something that's important and valuable, that it may not be that you immediately are like, oh, I feel so relaxed,
Hmm.
especially after we've gone from being hyper productive and in a mental headspace all the time. You might feel restless. You might be like, I have no idea what to do with myself,
Right.
when you finally have time. So I think knowing that, and in the beginning, just slowing down a little bit and giving yourself some space to start almost grounding your nervous system and getting back into a little bit of playfulness, a little bit of, creativity, simple pleasures that you enjoy but maybe have been neglecting for a long time. Um, so I kind of view that as the first step. And then from there, we can always start to look at almost remembering who we are. So, what are our values, our strengths, our gifts? What do you love doing? What does the world need? And then from there, that third step is sort of the experimentation phase.
Mm,
Can we go out and test some of these things?
mm.
Can we be an explorer? Can we approach it with some curiosity and playfulness?
I like that.
So,
And so far, you've been able to.
yeah, I have, and I'm still
You and
experimenting.
you're still doing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, it could also, as I was thinking, this could also apply for somebody who is truly at a point of retiring overall, or I know you've said this is also could apply for people who are selling their practice like to a DSO, that there's a change. I guess what's in common with all of that is it's a significant life change.
Yes, exactly. I think it can be applied to, like you said, you're selling your practice, you're retiring, or you're in a midpoint and you're debating those, but you're trying to figure out what's right for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about what holds people back sometimes from, even if they are feeling like maybe I've done all that I need or want to do in in the phase I've been in, whatever it is I'm doing right now. I don't feel like I want to keep doing exactly that. But what stops people from changing? So I kind of like, I came across the in a book I was reading, the illustration of like trapeze artists and how we often will focus on the person that's leaving the bar and flying through the air, right? Our focus is there, but how much focus needs to be on the person who's catching them, right? Like we wouldn't, if we didn't trust that we would be caught, then would we really let go and hurtle through space, which is kind of what you've done, right? And I did the same as we both were talking about making mid-course shifting. I mean, you're letting go of the bar that you were swinging on, and you're going to have to fly through the air. And either you have something really clear that you think it's not even a long leap and I'm going to catch on to that because it's already in place, or it's not so clear and it's even more of a kind of a leap of faith to say I'm going and I'm trusting I'm going to get caught.
Yes. I love that analogy.
Has that felt a little bit like some of your experience as well?
100%. There's a poem, I'm blanking on the name of the author. I'll send it to you later. And it's essentially that. It's like, but what if I fall? And then,
Mm,
but what if I fly? And I would basically read this poem and
mm,
repeat this to myself during that transition where you feel like, yeah, you're like in the safety of your little nest and you're like, I have this sense that I want to, I need to jump, I need to fly out,
yeah,
but I don't know where exactly I'm going.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is important. I think that there's a lot of people that need to hear things like this, even if it's not 100% for their even a career change. I mean, the application, this is a life application because there's going to be those times. Otherwise, you're going to stay too long where you are potentially,
Yes,
or you don't even have to leave completely, right? You could just be willing to make changes, right?
totally. On that note, I have no regrets selling my practice, but I later, once I was in a little bit more of a grounded state, I saw, oh, there were other possibilities.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, just being willing to tweak things, to, um, challenge beliefs we have
Right.
that it is exactly as it is and nothing can change. And, whatever that thing is you want to do isn't acceptable. Just challenging that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that segues into another thing I wanted to ask you, which is you talk about having a rich life. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about what that means to you and how that even relates to success or profitability in business. But I'm thinking that the willingness to make some mid-course shifting is related to that rich life, right?
Definitely. I think it's pivoting if you need to pivot and exploring, can I live that life? Say it's without pivoting, say your situation is as it is. Am I able to live that rich life with what I have going on right now?
Mm-hmm.
Or do changes need to occur? And when I talk about what's your rich life, the inspiration came from the book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And
Hmm.
it's a financial book, but it's really about looking at, like, what do you really want in life? When does your life feel wonderful?
Hmm.
For me, it's things like, freedom of my time,
Hmm.
feeling like I'm playing a game with my kids and I'm with them. I'm
Hmm.
there. Um, Listening to birds and noticing them. And so I think just that question, like for everybody, of are you getting that? Are you living it? And if not, maybe exploring what is it that would help you feel more like you can be in that rich life.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Anything more to say to amplify the rich life, or even what more about what that's been like for you in that quest? Um,
Yeah, one of the areas that I'm still very much exploring, that seems to be a key component for me, is my nervous system. So I feel that when you're at that place where you're highly stressed, if you're anxious, you're worrying, all that, it's really hard to access that
mm,
state. And so when we can get into that grounded state, that
mhm,
more, calm,
mm,
whether that means we're continuing in our business, but we're incorporating more rest, more relaxation, whatever it is that you need, I find that I really can access it so much more from that state
mhm.
and from spaciousness. That would be the other key component for me. Not being so busy that I'm just constantly moving and I have no space for a little bit of boredom, or you pause and you look around and you see what's actually happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. What would be some symptom clues, do you think, for people to go, maybe my life isn't as rich as it could be?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me it was things like feeling anxious and overwhelmed, more, anxious thoughts going on, feeling like when I got home from work and my family, my kids were talking to me, I would often have this sense of like I gave everything away during the day and I'm not really able to focus on them.
Right. Yeah,
And and just seeing that passage of time, feeling like I'm kind of missing out.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and losing touch with hobbies that I loved when I was younger. So I really loved art and creativity, and suddenly I wasn't engaging in those
yeah,
things anymore.
yeah. Kind of seems like just not fully alive. I think there's a lot of times we get lulled into routine, and routines are not intrinsically bad, but I think we can kind of start to go dead one little moment at a time, kind of like the TGI Friday thing, right? It's like I survived my week so that I can get to actually living as opposed to living all week.
100%. Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah. And I think we don't always notice it. I think we can quietly go to sleep. Makes me think of a client that I had that was a dentist 7 years in, kind of got that 7 year itch, I guess. But 7 years in, and he said he felt like he had the golden handcuffs on of I've got a wife and a child, and I do not love what I do. And
Mhm.
he could not figure out. We did assessments on him and found out that he was not really honoring the fact that he had a strong drive for creative innovation, and he wasn't really giving a chance to create anything. He was in this routine doing things that to him felt monotonous every day, and he needed the permission to be he needed to be seen for who he uniquely was, and the permission to say, what I'm currently doing isn't that. And
Mm.
that was the beginning of a change for him, right? Because he saw, oh, you mean it's okay that I could feel this way and I might want something different? I think, excuse me, permission is one of those first things.
I love that the permission to be authentic, to be whatever that is that you're craving, and to let that be okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So for doctors, even doesn't have to be doctors, right? We've got hygienists who watch and listen to us, and others kind of serving in the dental space. Um, what other advice might you have for the people who are kind of they're working hard, they're maybe and maybe they are enjoying what they're doing. They're doing good work, but at some level there's a disconnection. What advice would you give? And then I'd love to hear also a little bit more on the backside of that about what you're doing now, and how you might be able to be a resource to be of help to people maybe in this phase.
Yeah. I would recommend acknowledging what you're feeling. I think that's number one. So just acknowledging that you're stressed, you're bored, you want more, something doesn't feel right, whatever that is. I
Mhm.
think that's the key first step. And perhaps taking a moment to just daydream, sort of that idea that things could
Mhm.
change
Mhm.
instead of it has to be this way or I'm stuck forever. Just, letting yourself imagine that there's a possible, scenario where you don't feel this way, or you find something that really lights you up and you don't really know. I feel like you don't know what that means. You don't
Right,
necessarily know, I have to leave, I don't have to leave, I have to make
right,
this change.
right.
I got really stuck for many years in the cycle of looking at what other people had done
Mhm.
that felt disconnected and wondering, well, am I like this person? Am I like that person?
Right,
And that's, it's nice to see what others have done, but I
right,
think there's such an individual path for each of us.
right.
So I would start there. And then from that space, I think it's about slowing down. It's about going inward enough that you can start to listen, whether that's through something like you offer, like assessments or self-reflection,
Mhm.
or finding spaces of rest and just asking yourself what it wants. I mean, sometimes the
Right.
answer is
Yeah.
right under there.
Right. Yeah.
Just don't want to admit it, or we feel scared to say it out loud.
Right. Yeah.
And then I do think it's great to work with others, whether it's a coach or a therapist or a financial advisor, so that you can develop a plan and also help explore what you're feeling a little bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can talk if you want about my
Yeah.
search.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you specifically do. And then also for those who say, I need to talk to Dr. Camden Brown as a result of this conversation, what's the best way for people to reach you?
Yeah. So I have a website, drcamdenbrown.com. And on my website, I have a few different things. I have a blog where I've written many different articles reflecting on my journey. So that would be a space that if someone's going through some of this and just wants to see what happened for me,
Right.
it might be an
Yeah.
interesting read.
Hmm.
On my website, I also have a free anxiety toolkit So that is a PDF that walks someone who may be feeling anxious or overwhelmed through some self-guided practices and reflections. Along with that, I have two audio recordings. I have one that's called a drop-in and one for exploring anxiety. So the drop-in is just to help you ground into your body. So to sort of settle into the present moment a little bit more.
Mhm.
And that one would be useful, like I'm finishing the workday, and before I go home, I want to shift so that I can be in a different state.
Right. Yeah. Good.
Yes, and that's 5 minutes or so. And then the anxiety one is just to use along with the workbook, and it's about diving into what you're feeling and feeling it in your body and exploring what's there. And then, yeah, in terms of coaching, I'm working with primarily doctors, some teams. Like we talked about before, a lot of them are undergoing challenges and transitions.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's an external challenge or transition, such as a practice transition, a sale, or an internal
Mhm.
feeling a certain way and wanting to explore that. Yeah.
Great. That's great.
And you can find me on Instagram as well, drcamdenbrown.com, or whatever it is, at
Right. Yeah.
my handle.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And yeah, you can either contact me through my website or Instagram direct message.
Awesome. Well, I personally have very much enjoyed our conversation, and this is kind of right up my alley. I love. I feel like we could talk for hours on this, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure if everybody would stay with us for hours, but I mean, so I think, well, people stay with Joe Rogan for 3 hours, and then I think, okay, like
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, not yet anyway. So, well, I appreciate it. I expect that there will be some people who will reach out and check out your website, and I think it might be kind of fun to have a conversation down the road a little bit further to see kind of what happens next.
I would love that. Thanks
Yeah.
for having
The,
me. This
the
was so fun.
journey of Dr. Camden Brown will make it an ongoing saga.
We'll just have multiple episodes.
Yeah. It'd be like Yellowstone, then we go back at various places in the past.
Yes, I
So
love
much,
it.
thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and I'm excited for you and where you're going, and good for you again that you were willing to make a transition. So
Thanks for having me.
yeah, absolutely. So thanks everybody for watching. This is the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. I've been with Dr. Camden Brown. I hope that you will subscribe. If you have not, please tell your friends. We want to continue to have the support and have great people on like Dr. Brown. So we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you.